Today we have Janet Brush, founder of Senior Alternatives, a Bay Area-based care management and home care organization, speaking on the topic of behavior modification in seniors with dementia. Ms. Brush is a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed professional fiduciary, and has 2 master's degrees, social work and gerontology.
Thank you for joining our presentation on behavior modification with dementia. So at Senior Alternatives, the care management team has created and implements a 3-step protocol for decreasing agitated behaviors with dementia. Step number 1 is tracking behaviors. Step number 2 is determining the trigger, and step number 3 is integrating in pleasurable events. So let's start with step number 1, tracking the behavior. Tracking the behavior is done with an actual form that we use that looks at first the behavior, the date it occurred, the time it occurred, and then number 4, which is probably the most important component, what was going on in the person's life at the time and in their environment. Was there too much noise? Were they overtired? And that's what we're really looking for in step number 2 is the trigger. So step number 2, the trigger. So the trigger is, or the antecedent, is actually what is causing the behavior, and that's where we get the tool that we need to modify the behavior. So for example, we find out that Mr. Brown is hitting his wife in the mornings. That's when he's most agitated. So upon investigation, we find out that at that particular time during Mr. Brown's day, his wife is helping him shower, getting him ready to go to a day program that he attends. And she's stressed because she has to get to work, and the water's coming down from the shower into Mr. Brown's face. So I had the wife show me the shower and kind of give me an example of what a typical morning looks like. And then what we did is we turned it around a little bit. She got up a half an hour earlier, so she had a half an hour extra time, so she wasn't in such a rush. We decreased the pressure in the shower so that she brought a hose down to the chair and was able to shower him off gently, so he didn't have all this water pouring into his face, because that sensation could agitate him. And then in general, she was in a better mood in the morning because she was aware that it was actually the morning ritual that was causing the agitation. The agitation stopped immediately, and this is an example where he was actually hitting her, so it was becoming what we call a catastrophic event. It stopped, and I followed up with her for a very long time afterwards, and it never occurred again. There's a lot of different triggers that we'll find through the tracking tool, such as people are fatigued, they haven't had enough rest, there's too much noise in the environment, they don't feel well, there's pain, they're hungry, and so that's why probably the most important step is determining what the trigger is and modifying that part of the person's daily ritual, thereby modifying the environment and changing the behavior. So the third thing that we have brought into our protocol is our activities, and we call these pleasurable events because it's anything that provides pleasure for the person. And these are typically events that at one time the person really enjoyed, whether it's like an outing to the opera, and then we change them and modify them to something that the person can now experience in their life. So for instance, Mr. Brown can't go to the opera because his walking is really poor, but we take the music that he liked and we bring it into the house, and that really calms Mr. Brown down. And the reason why pleasurable events are so important is they're probably the most effective tool in decreasing behavioral issues. You're redirecting the person that has dementia into something that's pleasurable, and the brain automatically forgets that agitative space that they're in at that time. So to summarize, in order to effectively modify behaviors in people with dementia, we, number 1, track the behaviors. Number 2, focus on the trigger and change that particular part of the person's environment. And number 3, integrating in pleasurable events in order to provide more pleasure in the person's life, which thereby will decrease agitation in general. Thank you for joining us.
To learn more about this topic and many others, please visit Ms. Brush's website at www.bayareaseniorcare.com. Senior Alternatives also offers free 45-minute initial consultations to discuss issues around dementia and care planning in general.